Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about comparison operators, and even though this should be a very simple and straightforward video, many of you out there, self-included, at least until maybe 10 years ago, I just always struggled remembering, because at the time I didn't use it a whole lot, and it wasn't until I got into some Excel formulas or Power Platform or programming in Java or Python or things of that nature that you start running into this. I think the first time I came into it really hard was, I don't know, mid-2000s in using PHP, but nonetheless, this is something that we learned very early on, and typically I think in the end of elementary school or somewhere in junior high, when just before you got into pre-algebra and stuff. So the point here is that this is hard for a lot of people. I remember asking folks, and they always seem to have gotten it wrong as well, because I always had to check it and verify. So here's some easy ways of remembering it. Obviously, what we're talking about is equal than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. And I apologize for reading to you. But let's try to figure out a way so that you can get this into your mind's eye. And then we'll worry about doing, how this works when we're trying to do mathematical operations using comparison, and also text strings as well. All right, equal to, that's just straightforward, right? This is, if you just focus on greater than and less than, then less than or equal to or greater than or equal to become super, super easy. Two things to remember about the greater than or equal to. Okay, see how this is pointing to the right? The arrow, the pointy part, is pointing to the right. When you see that, think of greater than. And if you can't remember that, this is how I did it. An easier way to remember is wherever the thing is pointing, as long as it's pointing to the left and the word less both have an L in it. Okay, so think of left and less as the same thing because they both start with L. That was something that triggered it in my mind, and once I got that, everything else just fell into place. The other thing to remember that, and when you're looking at it, is if you're dealing with mathematical operations, any number that is on the wider part, think of that as the greater number. Okay, so if you're trying to do something like 10 and 12, this is where I think this screws up everybody. So right now, if you look at just the greater than or less than, this number is true, right? This is the greater than symbol. But in the context of this versus this, okay, just remember that the mouth, the wide part, not the pointy part, the mouth is always to the greater than side, right? And here's how you read it. 10 is greater than 5. But this by itself, just the symbol, it's a greater than symbol. This is 5 less than 10, okay? So that's how you read it out. And it gets confusing because it's the same numbers. We're still using a greater than less than symbol, but depending on which number is which, the way to read this, or another way of helping you figure it out, is whatever side the mouth is on it. If you think of a Pac-Man, I can't draw on screen, but if you think of a Pac-Man and a Pac-Man's mouth, the Pac-Man's mouth should always be eating at the larger number. And so that's another helpful way of figuring out how do I read this logically to remember all of that. Okay, and so if we look at just straight up mathematical operations, let's see. I'm trying to think about a good way of describing this, because if I do 5 equals 5, I'm going to get true. Okay, so 5 greater than 5, I get false. Okay. So comparison operators are typically used inside of either a switch function, which we haven't covered yet. We can also you also use it inside of a if functions, and we haven't covered this yet either. But if we just do if and we look at logical test, see, logical test. A logical test always uses, well, not always, almost always uses a comparison operator because you're comparing two things together. You could say high equals high with a space. See, it's false. If I remove the space, then it's true. The strings are equal. So it's not just numerical values. You can also use it with strings. Now, high greater than high is going to produce an error. But you can do it with equal or not equal to. So for example, when you're working with strings, either equals or not equal to works. You can also use the not equals, which we haven't seen that. 5 not equal to 1, which is true. But if 5 is equal to 5, so this is false because it's not equal. They're the same. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hopefully we gave you some insights of, kind of how to remember, bring a little value to an otherwise boring video, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.